Well, hello, I'm Josh and I'm back once again with another classic horror film for you. And this time I really mean classic, like 100-year anniversary classic. I'm of course talking about f.w. Murnau's 1922 vampire film, Nosferatu. So Nosferatu tells the story of young real estate agent Thomas Hutter, who travels to the castle of Count Orlok in Transylvania to help him purchase a house near his own in the city. After suspecting Orlok to be a vampire, Hutter becomes trapped in the castle while Orlok makes his way to the town, hiding in the shipment of coffins and causing mysterious deaths all along the way. Okay, so many Dracula fans out there might be thinking this story sounds a little bit familiar, and you'd be right. Apparently, director f.w. Murnau wanted to make a film version of Dracula, but didn't have the film rights to do it, and was worried about being sued. So he changed all the names and lightly altered the story in a few points. And this actually led Murnau to invent a concept that sunlight is deadly to vampires as a way to alter the book's ending, as this trait is not actually mentioned in the book. This did not completely work, however, as when the film was translated, some copies actually changed the names back to the ones from the book. And well, he got sued by Bram Stoker's estate, and the estate won. Now this is kind of the crazy part. Now, as part of the deal, all copies of Nosferatu had been ordered to be destroyed. Now today in 2022, we clearly know that did not exactly happen. But it's still crazy to think that for all intents and purposes, one of the most iconic horror films of all time, one that is still getting referenced frequently in pop culture, should not even exist today. I just find that incredible, and I mean it really just speaks to the importance of film preservation, and increases my appreciation when watching silent films like this that much more. I mean, there are several other cases, like London After Midnight, where for all we know, that film is completely gone, and all we have left are stills, or in the case of the Magnificent Ambersons, just a memory of what those stills look like. So I feel like if more people understood this, you might see a little more appreciation for classic movies, especially these silent films, which, as I talked about in my review of The Artist, can be really powerful and catch you off guard if you give them the chance. But in most cases are much slower and feel kind of boring if you don't go into them with the right mindset. Unlike modern movies, which use sound design in incredibly powerful ways to keep you engaged and even allow you to follow along if you leave the room or scroll on your phone, silent movies really require the audience's participation. You pretty much have to watch the screen the whole time, and though the music can often be quite exceptional in these films at carrying the emotions through sound, there is still a lot that is left up to the director to tell visually so that the audience can correctly interpret and understand the story. And as I said, this often leads to some very creative filmmaking that can even catch a modern audience who's theoretically seen it all by surprise. But to get this requires much more work and understanding that these films were made, in this case, literally 100 years ago, so it won't be quite as finely tuned for maximum entertainment value as a modern blockbuster. And I'm not trying to put down blockbusters or movies with sound, but I'm really kind of hoping this will help more people appreciate and try to experience these silent films. They can seem daunting at first, but when you think about it, the ones that have actually survived this long are generally considered to be some of the best of the best, so I wouldn't be too concerned about wasting your time. But so to get back to this movie, the film has a very iconic performance from actor Max Schreck as the Count Olaf, and to be honest, he is still incredibly scary. Though he looks nothing like the famous Bela Lugosi Dracula, that makeup is just so unsettling, and given the age of the film, all the grain and the cracks just make it all look that much creepier. Combine that with the clever lighting and shot design, and you have some pretty iconic imagery. And much of the classic imagery that we think about with Halloween and some of the old monster movies actually come from this German expressionist period, where the sets, lighting, and often even the acting was done in a stylized way to emphasize different emotions. And as I said, this went on to influence Hollywood in very obvious ways, especially in the 30s and 40s. Along with classic horror, film noir also makes use of the heavy shadows and visually expressive sequences. And Nosferatu, along with films like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and The Golem, were some of the films that really created this style, so it can be really interesting to see the origins of this look, which has become such an iconic part of culture. And just to give some more context on f.w. Murnau, if you don't know, he was a very famous silent film director from Germany, with great films like this one, along with Faust and The Last Laugh. But so Murnau eventually moved to Hollywood in kind of the mid-1920s and became even more famous with his film Sunrise, which won 3 Oscars, including Best Picture. Well, sort of. Some movie lists have it tied with Wings, which is how I've always kind of thought of it. But when I dug deeper, I found out that the award that it actually won was called Best Unique and Artistic Picture, which was only given the first year of the Oscars. So though I think Wings was later clarified to be the primary winner, it's still a pretty impressive list of awards, despite being a bit confusing. Sadly though, Murnau died in a car accident shortly before the release of his film Taboo when he was only 42. So I don't think he fully got to appreciate how influential his film Nosferatu would become. I mean, he was definitely well regarded at the time, but it's still kind of interesting to think that at the point that he died, Nosferatu was still kind of considered to be a lost film, or all the copies were supposed to be destroyed. And he actually died just a month or so after Todd Browning's Dracula was released. So he may have seen that version, but given that he was actually in the process of finishing up his own film, I wouldn't say it's too likely. And as I said, it wouldn't really be for a few more decades for you to really see how that film influenced culture. Director Werner Herzog has called it the greatest German film ever made, and even directed his own version called Nosferatu the Vampire in 1979. And now the Lighthouse director Robert Eggers is apparently working on his own version of the film. Nosferatu even spawned a fictionalized dramatization of the making of the film, based on old stories and urban legends that Max Schreck was actually a vampire. And that film is called Shadow of the Vampire, where Willem Dafoe plays Schreck. Also in Taika Waititi's popular vampire mockumentary What We Do in the Shadows, one of the vampires is clearly a nod to Nosferatu. And the film has even made its way into SpongeBob.
Nosferatu!
So there you go, Nosferatu, a truly classic vampire film that still manages to put people on edge 100 years later. And if you'd like to watch this film, it's available all over the place. You can get it to rent or buy from all the usual streaming sites. It's usually able to stream free on Amazon Prime. And if you don't have any of those, it's streaming pretty much all over YouTube at this point. For a lot of these silent films, they're often available to watch for free as the copyrights don't necessarily apply to a lot of them. Now that being said, the restorations of these films can be copyrighted, so that's just something to keep in mind. If you really want to see this in its highest available quality, your best bet is probably going to be getting the Blu-ray edition from Kino Lorber. It's a 2-disc set, it's got some nice bonus features, and from what I've seen, it's probably the best copy of the film available. Alright. Well, that being said, now it's time for the comment question, and I'm wondering, what is your favorite vampire film? I mean, Nosferatu, of course, is probably one of the finest and really most iconic. Even people that wouldn't go near silent films know Nosferatu. But there are tons of other great and really iconic vampire films out there, so put your favorites in the comment section down below and start discussing. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you want to see some more of these. Be sure to keep watching movies, and have a happy Halloween.